Hey there, welcome to Mike's Collection, episode 149. I'm Mike, and the part of my collection that I'm going to be talking about today is some Masters of the Universe Origins figures. Now, I have previously posted reviews for waves 1 to 6 of the Motu Origins line, as well as the deluxe figures, the box sets, and the Castle Grayskull playset. So if you're interested in seeing my 2 cents on any of those previous releases, you can find those on my YouTube channel. What I'm going to talk about today is some odds and ends, and they're all recent acquisitions. So it's not a full wave of figures. I've only got 3 items that I'm going to share with you here today. So I will get into that. But unlike in past videos, usually what I do is I get some new toys in. I don't really have time to sit down and do a whole video like this when I get them. But I'm also eager to open them up and fiddle around with the figures. So I'll come down here, I'll shoot a quick little 30-second video of the front and the back of the packaging, and then I open it up, and then later I come back and I shoot the rest of the video, and I do kind of a split screen of the toy and the packaging. Anyway, with these items, I actually haven't opened any of them up yet. Some of them I've had for nearly a month, a couple of them just came in. But so I'm going to show you the figures in the packaging right here. And I should mention that you might notice I have Tri-Klops here with me. Now, this is not an Origins figure. This is Tri-Klops from the Masters of the Universe Classics line, specifically the ones based on the Filmation, like the 80s cartoon. And the reason I've got him here is that he's relevant to this particular video, and also because I just got in this nifty new Tri-Klops Filmation style t-shirt. So since I was sitting here in this thing, I just thought he would look nice here with me as a co-host. So yeah, I'm going to get into these figures here. The first one I'm going to show you is a new version of Tri-Klops. Now, every year there is a Masters of the Universe convention called PowerCon, and they have exclusive figures that are available at the convention. Usually for people that don't attend the convention, they can order them online in advance. So for many years, the convention focused around the classics figures, because this is what Mattel had been making for about 10 years or so, from approximately 2008, 2009, up to 2019 or so. So I have some of the PowerCon Classics figures. But since Mattel has switched over to the Origins line, which are kind of a smaller, less detailed, more kid-focused line, they have had some exclusives. Now, the first year that they had some PowerCon exclusives, I wasn't really interested in them. They were cool, but I found they were way overpriced. But I did have the opportunity to get them if I had wanted them for quite some time. And that's been my experience in past years with PowerCon figures. You can usually, pre-buy them, well in advance of the show. And some of them you can even buy for weeks, if not months afterwards, if they haven't sold out. So when it came to this year's PowerCon, there were some Origins figures that I was really excited about. And one of them was a box set, I think it's called The Secrets of Grayskull. I ranted about this a little bit in a prior video. But it had a bunch of really cool add-ons to your Castle Grayskull playset, including the spacesuit, which was just a piece of cardboard in the original Castle Grayskull playset from the 80s. But now it's like a articulated figurine. So that was really cool. It also had the pit of monsters, which was just a sticker in the original playset, but now it was like a 3D grate with a tentacle coming out of it. And it also had this plume of smoke in the shape of a skull, which I think they referred to as the Spirit of Grayskull. And that goes all the way back to the earliest mini-comics. So you can put that plume of smoke up on the top of your Castle Grayskull. And I thought that set was awesome. There was also a new Faker figure that came with basically a Faker version of Battle Cat, whose name was, I think, Copycat. So yeah, I wanted both of those guys. They also had some other figures that I was less interested in. But the figures went on sale online at like 1 p.m. my time here on the East Coast. And I was ready. I had my tablet ready. I had my phone ready just in case. I had 2 different browsers open just in case one of them gave me problems. I had already created an account on Mattel's site, and I'd already had my credit card information and my address saved. Anything to speed up the process. However, I got in there, and I started putting stuff in my cart, and it was disappearing from my cart as soon as I put it in there. So everything I actually had both those items I mentioned, the Faker and the Secrets of Grayskull playset, in my cart. But by the time I hit next screen, like checkout now, they were gone. So it was a very, very frustrating experience. And the one item I was able to get was this updated Tri-Klops. So you see here, this is the brown mailer box that he came in. So there's a picture of Tri-Klops on the front. In this kind of cool, like he looks kind of like a sketch. And you'll see this is a fan vote winner. I don't know all the details to this, but I think Mattel had offered up a couple of options of figures that they would do as an exclusive, and the fans voted on Mattel's website, and this was the character they chose. So nothing on the sides, but then you get some more really cool pencil artwork on the front there. So you see Tri-Klops battling He-Man. They're coming through a portal with Skeletor and Beastman waiting in the background. So the terror of Tri-Klops. So I have nothing against Tri-Klops. I think he's a cool character. I already have the standard release. He was included in one of the prior waves, I think wave 4 maybe. So yeah, I just didn't necessarily feel I needed this figure. He's not one of my favorite characters, and it's not an outfit that I have any attachment to. But what this is it's Tri-Klops in his mini-comic look. So a lot of He-Man characters have different looks. You know, they have their look from the mini-comics, which came packaged with the toys. Like even the modern toys come with mini-comics. I've got one right here. So it's just like a little story that comes with your figure that gives you a little bit of backstory and all that stuff. So they include these with the Origins figures, just like they did with the classic toys of the 80s. And some of those figures had pretty different looks in those mini-comics compared to what the toy looked like. And then they had a whole different look in the Filmation cartoon. And then you've got the live-action movie, and then maybe even the like storybooks. So there was options for lots of different looks for some of these characters. So Tri-Klops, I think his, like the toy, that's what I most associate with his look. So the classics, they released a classic style Tri-Klops that looked like the old toy, but then they later released this version here to look like the cartoon. And so now we're getting this version, which is based off of his mini-comic. And I don't recall this mini-comic. I haven't had most of these since I was a child. The very first one I had that came with the first wave of figures, they stick out in my head because I probably flicked through those things like hundreds of times. But then the later ones, I just don't have that same attachment to. It was my older brother that had Tri-Klops when we were kids. So again, I just don't really remember the mini-comic. So anyway, you open up this mailer box, and inside, here he is. So it's Tri-Klops, and you'll notice he's got this kind of brown or reddish vest on with this like sash with these different colored, I don't know, ovals on them, I guess. He's got these orange boots. You'll get a better look at him once I open him up here. But so the design is similar, but yeah, this whole vest outfit is quite a bit different from what we've seen on past versions. And I'll get the other Origins version out a little bit later, and we'll do a side-by-side. But you can see he's got some new artwork wearing his new outfit there on the front as well. It also talks about how there's a glow-in-the-dark Warriors ring. And this is a throwback to an item that came with the vintage Tri-Klops figure. So I could wear that around and be really cool, I guess, if I wanted to. And on the back, we get that same artwork, just now it's in color with him coming through the portal. So very nice packaging. I'm almost tempted not to open this guy up because, like I said, it wasn't a figure I was necessarily dying to get. And I don't know, this guy could go up in value because he did sell out eventually. With like that day, I think it was probably within an hour he was sold out. So he's still rare, but he wasn't as, hot a commodity as the other figures there. So since I don't feel I necessarily need him in my display where I have my Castle Grayskull set up, you can barely see it up here on my windowsill. I've got Battle Cat, I've got all my Origins figures set up there. But you know what? I think I'm going to open him up. I kind of want to take a look at him. We'll display him up there. So yeah, we're going to do that in a minute. The next thing I've got here is the Windraider vehicle. So this is probably the biggest vehicle they've released in the Origins line so far. So yeah, this is like you see what it looks like there on the top there. It's got these wings, which I'll have to snap on. Some really cool artwork. I love the artwork on these packaging. It's kind of a shame to get rid of it, but I just don't have room to keep all these boxes. So you see there, Castle Grayskull. You've got Stratos in his Mini-Comic look, which is a figure that's coming out pretty soon. And on this side here, yeah, it looks like he's got Skeletor and Beastman, some guys flying in on these purple, I guess what you'd call evil Windraiders, which is very clever of Mattel because I don't think those things have ever appeared before, but they're thinking if we went through the trouble of tooling up this toy, why not sell it to these suckers again in purple, and that will be the evil version of the Windraider, and I will definitely buy it up, as will all kinds of other suckers. So, yeah, very cool. Artwork on the back, again, very cool. You get the Windraider is now, like, parked or crashed down here. And who else we got? We got, like, Zodak down here. We got He-Man, Teela, Man-at-Arms, Skeletor, and again, there's another closer look at his purple Windraider, which this one here, the good guy one, has kind of like, I don't know what I would describe that as, the kind of head on there. It's kind of this weird alien, almost like a seahorse head, I guess I would say, but I'm sure it's supposed to be something a little bit more majestic. But here you can see this one has like goat horns, similar to Skeletor's Havoc staff. So I'm sure when we get this version, they'll change up the head mount on there, and it looks like the shape of the wings will probably be more bat-like as opposed to the more mechanical on the heroic Windraider. So yeah, you can be certain that that's coming soon. Another thing that's kind of interesting on this packaging is they've been doing this a lot with the more recent waves, and I hope it means that we're getting these figures. But you'll see there's two characters here. There's this dude. It's hard for me to show you this and look at it. You got this dude here who just kind of looks like a gladiator with an axe and helmet, and then you've also got this like frog-like dude here. And this frog guy has appeared on a couple of the other packaging. Now he, as far as I know, is not based on anything. Like he's not a character from the cartoons or comics or anything that I'm familiar with. So I think they're just kind of creating new characters. And I'm hoping that that means they're going to release these characters. Because as much as I enjoy the Origins, getting these cool new toys that I had as a kid, I like the idea of the brand growing beyond what it was in the 80s and getting some new characters. The artwork continues onto the sides. So there's another vehicle. That's probably an indicator of what we're going to get in the near future. And a little bit more on the sides here. So there's that gladiator dude again, not a previously established character, and he's fighting Zodak. Oh, and there's the frog guy again too. So, you know, those guys are featured twice on the packaging. They're pretty clear, like establishing shots. You get to see the whole body of these guys. So yeah, it seems obvious that they're going to make figures of them. So I hope that's the case. Also on the back here, it just displays some of the action features. You see here it launches like a grappling hook. It can be parked on the top of your Castle Grayskull. The head swivels here. So we'll take a look at all that stuff once I open it up. And the last thing I've got here is a deluxe figure. So I previously did a video on the previous deluxe figures, which was the Battle Armor, He-Man and Skeletor, as well as Ram Man and Clamp Champ. What makes them deluxe is that they give them more accessories, usually an alternate head, just more weapons. So this time around, we've got Mosquitor, and he was released kind of all by himself. So he's on a larger card than you're used to seeing. Most of the other Master Universe Origins figures in store would only be about like that wide. But here you get this whole additional part. And so you can see here he comes with an additional head, besides the one that he's got already. He's got a gun, and then he's got this kind of, I don't know, squishy blood weapon. I think that's some sort of laser beam. I don't know. If you see on the... And first we'll take a look at the artwork here. So you get a cool picture of Mosquitor kind of leaping into action there on the front. And on the back, you'll see some artwork of him kind of launching this, I don't know, mist, this bloody mist out of his nose. And it's like grabbing Fisto. So I don't think that's anything we've seen from Mosquitor in the past, but I guess that's what this thing is supposed to be. So I guess you attach it to the end of his nose, and he can grab at the other characters. So yeah, very cool. I really dig the packaging on these guys. but I think we spent enough time on it, so why don't we flip this around and take a look at the figures outside of the packaging. So here is Mini-Comic Triklops outside of the box. And I gotta tell you, as soon as I got this guy open and started handling him, I really liked him, and I'm glad I got him. I know during the intro it kind of sounded like I didn't really want this figure, or I wasn't that impressed with this figure, but honestly, like during the Masters of the Universe Classics line, some of my favorite figures were when they would give us these obscure characters that were either from the mini-comics or characters from the cartoons we never got before. I found those new takes on characters were even more exciting than getting like redos of characters that I already had. So I think my initial disappointment about this Tri-Klops, it just stems from the fact that I didn't get the other PowerCon figures that I wanted more, like that spacesuit and the copycat, because those were new characters that would have expanded my my universe of Masters of the Universe as opposed to just getting a redo of a character. But I really do like getting these unique takes on these characters. So before I talk about the figure, I just want to quickly show you. So I've got my power ring on, and you can see here it opens up just like the vintage toy did, and I think you could hide a little message in there or something, and then the ring just snaps shut, and this thing glows in the dark, and it's got that kind of like Spirit of Grayskull logo on there, so that's pretty cool. Another thing that's really neat is I showed you the mini comic earlier. The mini comics that come with the new figures. So again, here's a comic that came with Wave 6. So these things are really short. So let's see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 pages, and that's the whole thing. And generally, the purpose of the comics is to introduce the new characters. So Wave 6 had this version of Beastman, Webstore, Stinkor, and the Goddess. And you see we get Webstore, Goddess, and Stinkor. You know, all those characters were introduced in these little 6 pages. So there you go. But the comic books that we got when we were kids, I remember them being longer, more elaborate, better stories. They didn't feel like just little throwaway items. And with this figure here, we actually get a full reprint of the mini comic that would have came with Tri-Klops back in the 80s. And it is a much better experience. I didn't have time to read this whole thing right now, but you can see like it's got, you know, the credits of the writers and the artists. You know, this does not look like thrown together artwork by any means, and not to knock them. There was some cool artwork in the other comic. I don't mean to knock those artists, but this feels like a more legit comic book. Like real time and effort went into this thing. And as you can see, there's multiple pages, a lot more story to be had. So this is a really cool thing to get included with the toy. And the end goes right to the very back of the back cover. All right, so now let's look at the figure. So as you can see, he's got this brightly colored kind of reddish orange vest on. I still don't really know what these things are. Maybe if I read the mini comic more thoroughly, I'll understand what this is. Maybe it's just decorative on his sash here. Otherwise, he's pretty familiar. You know, very similar to the standard Tri-Klops. So let me bring him out here. So this is the Tri-Klops that was released earlier in Origins. It is very faithful to the vintage toy from the 80s. So that's kind of always how I imagine Tri-Klops. This is the look I'm most familiar with. You know, I had the Filmation version out here earlier. Again, it's very similar. Some of the details a little lessened because they had to streamline the design for the animators. So, you know, he could be drawn a lot more quickly. So, you know, fewer colors, fewer lines, all that sort of stuff. But you can see how this would have been in translation into this. So this mini comic look, like the design and the colors, is pretty unique to the mini comics, and we've never seen it in plastic form before. Now the figure itself, besides the removable vests and armor, is the same except for the boots. So you'll notice Tri-Klops has the kind of standard He-Man boot here with the furry top and the kind of wrappings that aren't painted. But on this version, he has got these more like superhero-like boots. And I think these are the same boots that we saw on Scareglow. I don't know if we've seen them on other characters as well. But so yeah, it's kind of interesting that, you know, everything else in the design stays the same except for the boots. So articulation, everything like that's all pretty standard. He's got the same, like one hand is an open hand, one hand is a gripping hand. Now his sword's a little different. It's the same sculpt, but you can see how this one here, just like the vintage toy, was green, the black handle. But now we've got a more like realistic looking sword, I suppose, with the silver blade and then the yellow handle there. And now I almost, for a minute, I thought maybe the eye piece here that rotates was different as well, because it looked pretty different when just the way it's painted, but it is actually the same. So you'll see here, this is the same eye right now. So this version here has the really dark black eyebrow and the black, I guess, underbrow. And it's a sculpted piece. This guy here still has that. They just didn't paint it on this version. And then when we swivel, sorry, I don't have a lot of room here. You swivel the head to the right or to the left, and then you get this other red eye with one angry eyebrow sculpted on top. This one here, you spin it around. He's got the blue eye, and he still has the angry eyebrow, but you can see they did not paint it on this version, so that does give it kind of a different look. It looks maybe a little less angry. And then lastly, you spin it again, and then you get this kind of like, eye with the weird double eyebrow. All the other eyes had the single eyebrow. Now all of a sudden he's got double eyebrows over his one kind of like stunned eye. So this guy here, you swivel his head over. He's got the one kind of stunned eye, but you can see those eyebrows were not sculpted. They're just painted. So this one here, it's a weird look. I'm used to the eyebrows, which is pretty silly, but it looks pretty strange without the eyebrows as well. I'm having a little trouble getting these guys to stand. Not used to having He-Man figures with knees. So there you go. So other than the boots and the colors, the only real difference is the vest. There's not a whole lot to see on there. You see from the back, the sash continues. It's a different pattern. So he's got these ovals on the front, then these kind of squares on the back. There's some elaborate design on here. He's got a spot which I assume his sword will fit in there, like so. So there you go. You can store his sword on the back, which is cool. But yeah, like I think out of the two looks, I prefer the standard look. That's just what I'm used to. But it is really cool to get this new design. So I really like this figure, and I'm glad I got him. Okay, so I just opened up the Windraider, and I just wanted to quickly show you what it looks like right out of the box before I start snapping it together. It doesn't look like there's a whole lot of assembly required, but there is some. All the stickers are pre-stuck, so all these decals here, you don't have to worry about putting any of these on yourself. But then as far as extra pieces, there's a little bit more in there than I was expecting. So there are the two wings, no decals on those. Then this would be, I think, the back fin. This computer terminal, which I think probably goes in the front, perhaps. Then we get another kind of metallic panel here. Then this and this, I think, are part of a display base. So you can kind of display this thing hovering, sort of like the sky sleds that we got earlier. So let me snap this all together and figure it out, and then we'll come back and take a look at it. Okay, so I've snapped everything together, and now it doesn't fit on my screen. So I'll have to pull back a little bit here, and you'll see what we're working with here. So those computer parts, both the metallic pieces, they snapped into that green base. You get the cool little like Castle Grayskull logo there at the front. So I guess this would be kind of like a launching pad for this thing, which is pretty cool. The wings just snapped in the side. Whoops. You got that panel in the back. And that was all there was to it. So there you go. That is the Windraider fully assembled. Now I might have to take it off the stand so I can set my tablet down and get in here a little closer. Alright, so I've made some adjustments so I can fit it on screen. I took it off of the display base and I popped the back wing out just so I can push it right up against the wall here and we can take a look at it. So it is a good-sized vehicle, similar in size to the Land Shark that was released earlier. So now that we've got the base off, take a look at the bottom. You see it's got these 3 wheels cast in this clear plastic, so it can be driven along the ground. That's the hole that the base plugs into. It plugs in and out quite easily. Yeah, the wings, so they plug in there. You can adjust those a little bit if you want them up or down. The back panel has a little bit of rotation to it as well. So you get a good look at the detailing. Like, there is some painted detail on here with some of these like caps and stuff here, but there's lots of unpainted detail as well. So if you're a customizer, you might want to come in here with some black paint, and you could probably make this thing look a lot sharper with just a minimal work. But yeah, if these were like red and these were gray or anything, that could really enhance this thing. So there you get a seat on the inside, lots of leg room in there for figures. There's dual grips that they can hold on to, control panel sticker. So we'll pop a character in there, see how well he fits. So we'll take our Tri-Klops perhaps. I don't know if his sword will fit in there, so. So, there you go. He fits in there pretty well. He's only got one gripping hand, so he could hold that grip with the one hand. Yeah, pretty cool. And the only other thing I think we have to look at with this feature, so its action feature is if you press this button here, the grappling hook should shoot out. And it's got this string on it. And it's not super long. That's pretty much all you get for string. But then when you want to coil that thing back up again, you turn the head, and it comes right back up. And then you just plug this thing back in there. Oops. I don't know which way I'm supposed to. There we go. And then it just plugs back in place. So that's it. That's how the Windraider works. It looks pretty cool. I like that it's got a display base. I like that it can be mounted on your Castle Grayskull. And yeah, it's just really cool to expand my my vehicle here. You know, what's the word I'm looking for? But anyway, you know, my battlefield just feels so much more complete when you've got all these weapons and these beasts. It's just really cool. Even just that display base, which I threw over here. The fact that it's you know, it's got this Castle Grayskull like base, those green rocks. So even if I choose to display this somewhere separately, like sitting on the ground here, just having this extra panel, like this computer panel, you could probably pop this thing. Well, I don't want to risk breaking it, but you could take this thing out if you didn't want to have that there. And it just gives you another little mini play set to display somebody on. So yeah, it's a pretty cool set. Definitely some good bang for your buck here. So lastly, we're going to take a look at Deluxe Mosquitor outside of the box. And this guy's pretty cool, but like a lot of the Deluxe figures, I kind of question whether we needed Deluxe or not. Is that just a money grab by Mattel? Because sure, we get a couple of weapons in here, but it doesn't really feel like all that much stuff. Having said that, though, I still think the price point on these figures is great. These are way more affordable. They're like half the price of most 6-inch figures that I collect these days. So yeah, if you want to tack on an extra $5 and call it Deluxe, I don't really care. But so here you see, he's got that kind of great design. I never had the vintage Mosquitor when I was a kid, but like all these Origins figures, I think this new version is very close to the vintage toy. Now, as far as the blood pumping action, which was his big thing, it says it still works here, so let's try it. So he's got this knob on the back of his back. I haven't tried this yet. So when you pump that, yeah, you get this like liquid ooze bubbling into his chest. So that's really cool. So yeah, like if you had him go up to a character and poke him in the neck, and then you press that button, it looks like he's feeding on poor Tri-Klops here. So very cool. Hopefully that doesn't deteriorate over time. Since I never had the vintage one, I don't know if they held up. I think they have. I haven't heard a whole lot of horror stories of him leaking or anything like that. Maybe the pump action stops working or whatever, but since I'm going to probably treat this guy pretty delicate, considering I'm somebody in his 40s, I'm not going to take this guy out into the backyard in the sandbox or the bathtub or anything like that. I imagine as long as I display him on my shelf, that pump feature should work for a good long time. So anyway, really cool design. I love these boots on this guy. I've told you in past videos, I love characters that have just big solid feet. For one, as an action figure, it helps them like to stand up without falling down all the time. But just as a design element, I just like love a good big solid boot like that. You know, nothing ruins a figure faster than if you've got a really cool transformer, but then he's got these little dinky hollowed out ankles and stuff. I like somebody with a big solid base like that. So these are really cool boots. These are probably my favorite in the whole line thus far. He's got his cool like purple rifle here. You know, the head is just this crazy bionic mosquito. Very creepy looking. Like this guy a lot. And yeah, he has no extra appendages or wings or anything you might expect, but that's true to the vintage figure. So let's take a look at his accessories. So he does come with one extra hand, so you could have two gripping hands. He currently has one gripping and one fist. And this is one of the things that kind of annoys me, that if you're going to call this a deluxe figure, why don't you give me two gripping hands and two closed fists? Like, what if I want to have him like really duke it out with He-Man? Like, would it have been that much effort to give me another closed fist? But again, I don't really play with these things, you know, so I don't really need the extra hands. When it comes to Marvel Legends, sometimes they come with like 6 or 8 hands, and I just end up throwing them all in a spare parts bin, never to be seen again. So yeah, I don't really need them, but just considering that, you know, Hasbro's kind of set the precedent with extra hands, I think if you're going to give me an extra hand, you might as well give me an extra pair of hands. So here's that blood effect that we saw. So it's like a translucent, very pliable plastic. It's got this hole on the back there, so you can just slide this onto his nose. It fits pretty snug. It's pretty heavy, so it kind of pulls his head down. But again, we'll bring the Tri-Klops out here again, and we'll see how this works. So yeah, you can wrap those arms kind of around a character like so, I guess. So it's got this kind of gripping action. I'm a little scared. I don't want to mess with that too much and bend my Mosquitor's nose. Might be better to mess with this thing first. Get this all wrapped around a character the way you want it. And then put it on there. And there you go. Now you've got this weird gripping effect with the... so I don't know if he's spraying blood or spraying mist or whatever, but pretty weird. Alright, we'll get rid of that for now. And you know what? Actually, before I look at the last accessory, I just want to do a little bit of a comparison. So I don't have the original, but the first Mosquitor I got, and I've talked about these things in past videos, but in 2002, there was a new He-Man cartoon and there was new figures. Now, the cartoon got canceled kind of prematurely before they wrapped up the storyline. So we didn't finish the cartoon story, and the toy line ended quite abruptly as well. So in order to give fans some of the characters that they wanted, the Four Horsemen, which is a sculpting team, and Mattel, and I think there was maybe another company involved too that helped put these statues out, like Gentle Giant or NECA or somebody. But anyway, they carried on the line as staction figures, which were more like statues than action figures, but they were to scale with the 2002 action figures. So let me bring out my Mosquitor staction figure here. So this guy is really cool, except this guy I found to be super awkward, and because of his awkwardness, he's all busted up, and he's like near impossible to display. So you can see with these 2002 designs, the Horsemen really like leaned into their unique design elements and like made Stinkor more skunky and made Mosquitor more bug-like. And I really love the enhancements they went with these characters. So they don't move. So you can't move his arm up and down or turn his head or anything like that. He is like a statue. They came off of these display bases though. That's just a plug in his foot. So you could lift him off of there, and then he could just kind of stand with your action figures, and it's hard to even know the difference. So yeah, for design elements for this guy, you know, his head is really creepy. I think that was straight. I think it's just kind of bent over time. And they added these canisters where you can see he stores the blood. It's got this cool translucent, like red blood piled up in these tubes. But both of these have broken off. These were attached to the figure when I got them. I'm not sure how they're supposed to go. If they're supposed to go outwards, it almost looks like a little bat wings, or if they go inwards like that, I'm not sure. But both of these have broken off, and I've just got them kind of resting in place. Like Web Store, they also added some extra legs for the first time. So you see Mosquitor's got some little extra legs down here, and he's also got these extra legs folded in the back. One of these is broken off of mine. I've just kind of got it resting in place there. So again, these things are very delicate, and I think he fell off my shelf once or twice because of the way he leans. He was kind of top heavy. And then he also has this gun, which is, kind of modeled after his original gun, except now you can see with more detail. It's got this clear canister where the blood goes in, and it's got this tube that leads into the backpack, Hordak's face on the back. Really, really cool. And again, those big, solid boots. But the gun is awkward because it sort of fits in his hand like that, but where he's got the display base, this thing kind of hits the ground, so you have to contort it, and then it doesn't really fit in his hand. And anyway, I love the design of this thing, but the figure is just kind of a mess because he falls over, he's got too many breakable parts, and it is what it is. So we'll get rid of him. The other version of Mosquitor that I have is the Classics version that came out around 2010, 2011, something like that. So here he is. So similar to the vintage figure, but they have borrowed a couple of things from the 2002 redesign, namely the extra appendages. So they did the same thing with Web Store. I think they liked the idea. It makes them a little more bug-like and unique. So they kept the extra legs added from 2002. But otherwise, head design, chest design. This guy does not have the blood pumping feature, but you can see how he's got that clear red chest, which kind of, represents that feature from the vintage figure. He's got the purple gun again, very similar in design. The big silver boots. So very cool. Mosquitor is a really cool character, and I'm really glad to finally have him in the Origins line. Now let's take a look at that last accessory he comes with, which I don't know what the story is, but most of these deluxe figures come with alternate heads. So with, say, Clamp Champ or He-Man, it was like maybe they had an angry face and a smiling face or something like that. With Mosquitor, he's got a standard head, and then he's got this head, which is weird, and it's, as far as I know, it's not from the cartoon, it's not from the comic books. I really don't know what the story on this head is. Is this something that they completely just made up for this figure? And if so, did they have some intent behind what it means? This character comes with a mini-comic, but it doesn't explain it in there. In the comic, he's got his standard head here. So, yeah, I don't know what this is. I like it. It's cool. It definitely looks more biological, like this is his skin. And so the way it's modeled with those fins on his head and the texture, I've seen some people speculate online that this is his unmasked head, which it never even dawned on me that Mosquitor was masked, because all the characters in Masters of the Universe are so weird. It's not unheard of that this guy would have a robot mosquito head, and him not necessarily be a robot. It's just, that's his design. So the fact that this could be a helmet, and underneath he looks like this, which is still he's got some metallic enhancements there, he's maybe a cyborg. Yeah, that's a possibility. So this might be his unmasked head with that skin texture. That would make sense, but I really don't know. It's a cool head. I'm glad they included it. It's something interesting. But yeah, otherwise, that's Mosquitor, and I think he's pretty cool. So that is my review of my Masters of the Universe Origins miscellaneous figures, odds and ends. I'm not really sure what I'm going to call this video yet. I guess I have to figure that out. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and please leave me comments below. So I think that's it for now. I'll be back soon with another video. Until then, ciao.